Neil Haley Show and Doc Tales. I'm excited to welcome the host of Doc Tales, World Doc, Alan Lindemann. Doc, what's going on, man? How are you?
We're doing really well here, Neil, and you?
Fantastic. And our guest today is Dr. Wayne Carter. And anything to help with cancer, he's a tremendous service. Dr. Wayne, thanks for stopping by. And I know that Doc has the first question for you.
Excellent. Well, yeah. Dr. Carter, you had me at glioblastoma. That got my attention. And I was looking at your research, and you have a couple groups of research, but I'm wondering, you're using your new technology and combining it with pre-existing treatments. And I'm thinking, why are you doing that? I mean, wouldn't you want to just completely use your own new technology?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So the standard of care today, if you were diagnosed with glioblastoma, is radiation and temozolomide. It's chemoradiotherapy. And so you have to continue to receive the standard of care, until we prove that our therapy is better. And there's actually another reason why we may even continue part of this chemoradiotherapy long term. So in our therapy, we're actually, we first vaccinate the patient against their own tumor so that they can actually develop an immune response against their tumor. And then they receive their standard of care, which is the chemoradiation therapy. Tumors have a very they actually have figured out how to evade our immune system. And so by treating the patient with the chemoradiotherapy, we're actually converting the tumor environment into an environment which will be much more susceptible to allowing the T cells to function the way they should. So we actually think that actually keeping some part of the standard of care may be beneficial long term.
So what made you come up with the idea for this research and to get this out to the market?
Well, I wish it were my idea, but it was my my chief scientific officer, who's the founder of the company, Gary Wood. Gary developed the technology many years ago, and he's been working diligently for 25, 30 years to get this, to the marketplace. And so, yeah, no, we're very excited. We actually, so we're focused on glioblastoma, as you mentioned, for people. We have a sister company known as Elias Animal Health, and you may want to interview Tammy Wayhouse, who's our CEO of that company. They actually have just received an approval from the USDA. Their clinical data has been approved for canine osteosarcoma. That's bone cancer in dogs. And so I am an immunologist. I've got a PhD in immunology, and so I have no doubt in my mind that this technology works, this therapy works. We just have to figure out how to get it to patients, how to get it through the regulatory process and get it to patients. So we're quite excited about it.
Wow.
So do you see the day when somebody would only get your treatment? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. No, I think it is. We're, as I've said to many people, if I get cancer one day, this is the way I would want to be treated, because we have very few side effects with this therapy also, because it's just your own T cells fighting your cancer. You're not receiving a lot of toxic drugs or, chemotherapy that's going to, remove your hair or wipe out your taste buds or cause vomiting and diarrhea. These are just your own T cells killing your own cancer cells. And so really what we're doing is we're reprogramming your immune system so that it can identify your cancer cells and then kill them.
I just find this fascinating, and thank you for your service and what you're putting together. And it's unbelievable to go the animal side as well. And you're hoping for all types of cancers for animals at one point too, right? For dogs and
Yeah,
pets.
so you raised actually a very good point. So yeah, we actually believe that this is a platform technology that can potentially treat any cancer, and that certainly applies to both dogs and to humans, because it's a completely autologous treatment. So that means it's designed for one person at a time, and so we take the patient's own cancer, develop a vaccine from that cancer, from that own the patient's own cancer. We then vaccinate them, and then we collect their T cells, and then those T cells get sent back to our manufacturing facility we activate them and expand them. And so then we're giving back about 50 billion activated effector T cells that you can almost think of them like smart bombs that literally circulate throughout your entire body, hunt down your cancer cells, and then kill them.
I'm fascinated by this. I didn't know this is around, Doc. Did you?
Well, no, I didn't either. I mean, I've known about immunotherapy for a long time, but what you're doing here is it's very specific. In the past, I've always said if I had to have cancer, it would be thyroid cancer because it's always for a long time it's been one of the cancers that the radioactive iodine picks out the cancer no matter where it is. So, and it doesn't destroy a lot of other tissue. And that's really what you're talking about. This is very specific for this one tumor. It doesn't get a lot of other, it doesn't injure a lot of other tissue. So, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, because
if
it's
I
just,
had to,
again, yeah, it's your own T cells, right? They're just going after your own cancer. So yeah, it is very specific.
So how do you get this to the marketplace completely? Is it in what? Where are we at with that?
So we have fast track designation from the FDA, and so that we're officially in what's known as a phase 2B study for newly diagnosed patients with glioblastoma, a specific type. They're referred to as MGMT negative. That means they're unmethylated. That's one of the markers we look for in the tumor. These patients, unfortunately, they simply do not respond to the standard of care, which is radiation and temozolomide. And so their median survival is 12.7 months. And so, unfortunately, they live a very short period of time. In our clinical study, half will receive the control treatment, half will receive the immunotherapy plus the control treatment. And obviously, we're doing everything we can to try to expedite the clinical trial and get it to patients as soon as possible.
well, I think it's great. And if I ever get a glioblastoma, which I hope I don't, this is the treatment I would like to have. You know, radiation. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist, and as far as doctors go, we're not considered to be very bright. Just one notch above ortho. But this is the kind of treatment I would want. And I have seen many times what happens to people who get radiation for their glioblastoma, and they lose a lot of their cognition.
Yeah, absolutely true. It's the when you start the therapy, obviously you're having surgery first, and then, the standard of care is the radiation and temozolomide. And so you're oftentimes, there, depending on where the glioblastoma is, it can be in some very sensitive areas of the brain, as you know. So depending on where that surgery is, and then depending on, the radiation field, you absolutely can have some very significant cognitive effects also. And some of that certainly is from the radiation. Some of it likely is also certainly there's a well recognized effect known as chemobrain, where the chemotherapy itself affects your cognition. So
Yes,
So when do you treat other cancers? When does that happen? What are you timelining for something like that?
yeah, so it's all about money, and right now we're just focused on getting this to patients for glioblastoma. Right, the more money we had, the more we could test other therapies. We certainly are very interested in getting this treatment into other cancers, pancreatic cancer, triple negative breast cancer. We actually believe because the therapy works at a very personalized level, one patient at a time. The really difficult to treat cancers like glioblastoma, but then also like pancreatic cancer, triple negative breast cancer, colorectal cancer, various types of, phase stage 3, 4 colorectal cancer, cholangiocarcinomas, those really difficult to treat cancers, we believe that this therapy could work very well for.
how about melanoma?
So melanoma, we think it could work very well for melanoma. As I'm sure you know, there are some the treatments now, especially with the immuno oncology boom. There are a lot of PD-1 inhibitors, PD-L1 inhibitors, which work well, certainly to boost the therapy for melanoma. There's also a new company which just got approval for their therapy, and the company is called Iovance. The therapy is called TILs, or tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. Their therapy is literally almost identical to ours, but they actually collect their T cells directly from the tumor. We just collect them from the blood. So we actually, we won't have the limitation that Iovance has, but their therapy actually was approved for melanoma. And so there are some very good treatments which are out there today for melanoma. If you were to, unfortunately, be diagnosed, I actually lost my sister to melanoma many years ago, and it certainly continues to drive me today as far as why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So what to I guess population that would love to have this cancer treatment, what are you said money is the thing, testing and then money that's raised for through research, or where are you guys going?
Yeah, so we've started our our phase 2B clinical study, and we actually received a $2 million grant from the FDA Office of Orphan Products. Pretty unusual for the FDA to actually give you money to help develop a drug, but they have. They, clearly are very interested in helping move this along. We have money from investors also, but we need probably another 20 million to get through the entire drug process. Obviously funding all of our clinical studies, the remainder of this clinical study, which is a 120 patient study, all of those clinical costs, and then beginning to look to commercialization of the therapy. So we are obviously in a significant fundraising mode, where we're working to educate investors about what we're doing, and then hopefully garner their interest. Unfortunately, there have been so many failures in glioblastoma. Dr. Lindemann, I'm sure you're familiar with this. There have been so many failures in glioblastoma that it's hard to get money for it because people don't want to be part of another failure. But we're really quite optimistic in the therapy that we have moving forward.
You know, I don't have a lot of experience with this, but of course I do see patients who I had one pregnant patient I diagnosed a glioblastoma. She lived, at least long enough to deliver the baby. But I had one patient who actually survived, but her life was very different after her treatment.
Yeah.
Um, she and I think it was like enough years, like 10 years, so you could say she's probably really done with it. But she had radiation on the left side, and it started to destroy the muscles on that side of her face, and the whole side of her face was caving in.
Mm,
And of course, I didn't get to know her before her treatment, but she certainly couldn't have held a job.
yeah. Yeah, obviously the caregivers, if you will, suffer significantly also, in their the period of time when they're helping these patients that are almost across the board terminal, uh, you know, maneuver through that year, a little over a year that they have to survive. It's tough, certainly for the patient, but also the caregivers.
Wow. Okay, best place people can find information on everything. Where can they go?
Yeah, so our website, they can also go to clinicaltrials.gov. You can find all sorts of clinical trials which are available to participate in on clinicaltrials.gov. And certainly we are open to patients that might be interested in this. I'll comment at the end that uh, we have to have the tissue right up front. And so if you've been diagnosed, unless it's just been by biopsy, you wouldn't qualify for the study. It literally, we have to receive that fresh tissue from the surgeon to be able to make your vaccine. And so you really have to if you have any suspicion that you have a glioblastoma, there needs to be a early diagnosis and referral ultimately to a neurosurgeon that's participating in our study. We do have sites open around the world, around the US.
Okay. Well, such great information. Great to know that we're coming up with technology like this. And thanks again.
You bet. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
You're
you, Dr.
listening to
Carter.
the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and Doc Tales, guys. Take care.